You grow up hearing about willpower, effort, positive thinking, but no one shows you that behind it all, there is something more subtle and infinitely more powerful: the way you direct your attention. What if I told you that you are already manipulating energy all the time, but unconsciously? This invisible force shapes your relationships, your body, your external reality. And what's most curious is that when you learn to feel, not with your eyes, but with your presence, the surrounding field responds. There's a real and intriguing case: a man named Kuda Bux. He was known as the blindfolded seer. Literally, his eyes were covered with layers of gauze, dark paste, wax. And even so, he read books, hit targets, described surrounding scenes. How was that possible? What few people know is that Kuda trained for hours in silence, observing the flame of a candle. Absolute focus created a bridge between the internal and external world. And this is not magic. It's attention condensed into intention. In this video, we're going to walk this path, uniting science, spirituality, and practice. Not just to understand with the mind, but to feel the exact moment when the energy shifts. Because the reality you live in begins in the place where you put your consciousness. The mystery of directed attention, scientific plus spiritual basis. Most people think they're merely observing the world, but in fact they're shaping it all the time without realizing it. Attention is not passive, it is creative. Where you focus, you send energy. And where there is energy, there is expansion. This is not just a spiritual idea. It's something science is beginning to confirm. Studies on neuroplasticity show that the brain reorganizes its pathways according to what is repeatedly observed. Sustained attention modifies internal structures. But this same principle extends beyond the mind. It also acts in the vibrational field. What you observe consistently begins to gain density, form, response. Kuda Bux, known as the man who saw with his eyes blindfolded, trained his attention almost obsessively. He spent hours contemplating the flame of a candle until all distraction dissolved. He didn't see with his eyes, he saw with his consciousness. In the tradition of the Yoga Sutras, this process has a name: samyama, a state where attention is refined from initial focus to complete fusion with the observed object. The mind doesn't merely look, it becomes. And when this happens, the separation between internal and external dissolves. That's when the ancients said, the observer and the observed are one. But reaching this state doesn't require years in a cave. It requires presence, the ability to return again and again to what is happening now. Without fleeing, without trying to rush, without trying to control. Just being. When your attention rests gently on something, it begins to transform it. This applies to a plant, to a pain, to a dream. What you sustain with a loving, conscious, and continuous gaze transforms. A scattered mind, however, prevents this process. In a world saturated with stimuli, learning to focus is a radical act. It is reclaiming the power to shape experience, to create coherence between what is felt and what manifests. Maybe you don't need more information. You just need to learn to sustain your gaze in a single direction, because where your attention is, your vibration is also, and where your field vibrates, your reality is born. But what happens when that focus crosses the limits of the common mind? What if attention, when sufficiently refined, opens doors that most people have forgotten how to access? In the next section, we'll walk the trails left by the ancients. Explore the siddhis, abilities awakened through pure concentration. Understand how shamans accessed invisible realities. And touch on a concept that transforms everything: the intent, the force that responds only to true presence. The power of the ancients, siddhis, shamans, and the force of intent. For millennia, what we now call energy manipulation was part of the spiritual daily life of entire cultures, not as theory, but as intimate experience. They didn't need scientific proof to know that reality responded to the inner world. They felt it. On the path of yoga, this manifests as siddhis, abilities considered extraordinary, but that, in truth, are born from the deep stillness of the mind. Seeing at a distance, healing with hands, moving objects, reading thoughts. Patanjali doesn't present them as goals, but as natural consequences of the mind that has unified with presence. These abilities arise when attention becomes so stable that it breaks the boundaries of time and space. But it's not power for power's sake. It's expanded perception, a state where the duality between self and world begins to dissolve. In shamanic traditions, we find the same principle under a different name. Shamans didn't pray for rain, they became the rain. They didn't search for someone. They felt the person's vibration in the field. Their practices were deep invitations to merge with nature, with spirits, with the living intelligence of the universe. And this didn't happen by chance. It was the result of years of training in inner listening. In the silence of the jungle or desert, the shaman learned that everything that exists responds. Carlos Castaneda, while studying with shamans in Mexico, found a concept that summarizes all this wisdom: intent. Not a desire, not a thought, but a force, an invisible field that permeates everything and can only be accessed by one who is whole. Intent does not respond to doubt nor to haste. It moves when there is total surrender, an absolute yes vibrating in the body, emotion, and consciousness. This is why many fail when trying to manifest something, because outwardly they declare what they want, but inwardly they hesitate, and intent perceives the real vibration, not the appearance. The difference between dreaming and manifesting lies in the intensity of presence. A shaman, a yogi, or an initiate doesn't merely desire. They embody the state. They feel as if it already is. They dissolve into the intention, until the intention becomes reality. But is all of this just ancient wisdom? Or is there a more recent confirmation, a point where the sacred meets the scientific? In the next section, we'll cross that frontier, from the temple to the laboratory, and discover how quantum physics confirms what the ancients already knew. Reality is not fixed. It is shaped according to how the observer positions themselves. Quantum physics confirms reality is shaped by the observer. For a long time, reality was considered something fixed, external, unquestionable, as if the world out there simply existed, and all that was left for us to do was react to it. But this idea began to collapse when scientists started to look not only at what exists, but at how it is observed. At the heart of quantum physics, there is an experiment that challenges everything we know. The double-slit experiment. A beam of particles is fired at a barrier with two openings. When no one is observing, the particles behave like waves, like infinite possibilities. But the moment an observer enters the scene, those possibilities collapse into a single point. The particle chooses a path. Reality defines itself. It's not magic, it's science. And the message behind this is clear. The observer's consciousness interferes with the outcome. This means we're not just inside the universe. We're participating in its construction all the time. Another concept that deepens this view is quantum entanglement. Particles separated by thousands of kilometers continue to communicate instantly. A change in one alters the other, even without any apparent connection. This reveals something powerful. Everything is interconnected by a subtle field, an invisible intelligence that responds not to touch, but to vibration. This field is sensitive to presence, to intention, to the quality of the internal state, the way you perceive, feel, and believe, that shapes the collapse of reality in front of you. That's why it's not enough to act correctly if, on the inside, you're still vibrating in doubt, fear, or resistance. The universe doesn't hear words. It responds to frequency. And your frequency is shaped by the way you observe everything around you, with resistance or surrender, with fear or faith. Perhaps that's why so many people repeat the same experiences, even when trying to do things differently, because the observer remains the same. And as long as the observer doesn't change, reality doesn't change either. If this point touched something within you, if you felt that this perspective changes how you see your own life, like this video now, And in the comments, write, "I choose to observe with presence." This is not just a phrase, it's a vibrational act, a signature of intention that begins to move the field. And if observing changes everything, then what happens when you not only observe, but assume the new reality as if it were already yours? In the next section, we'll unite two profound laws, the law of attraction and the law of assumption, and reveal how the vibration of already is becomes the key to collapsing the desired reality with more ease and less effort. Law of attraction plus law of assumption equals the key to manifestation. Much is said about the law of attraction, but what few realize is that it doesn't operate in the realm of desire, but in the realm of identity. You don't attract what you want. You attract what is already compatible with your most intimate vibration. And that vibration doesn't arise from isolated thoughts, but from what you feel as truth right now. That's where the law of assumption comes in. While the law of attraction states that everything vibrates and like attracts like, the law of assumption, popularized by Neville Goddard, reveals something even more subtle. Reality responds to what you have already assumed as your internal state. If you assume with total emotional conviction that something is already happening, the field responds as if it were real. This requires more than repeating affirmations. It's a leap in identity. You stop waiting for change to come and start living as someone who already carries that change in body and presence. It's not about deceiving yourself or pretending. It's about inhabiting a vibrational state before it physically manifests. If you desire peace, you assume the internal posture of peace, even if external chaos is still present. If you desire abundance, you begin to act, feel, and breathe as someone who already has, without the anxiety of seeking. This state cannot be forced with the mind. It needs to be cultivated with energy. And energy, as we've seen, responds to observation. That's why everything begins with awareness. You observe what you're vibrating now, release resistance, and choose the new state, not as an ideal, but as an internal reality. The merging of these two laws is the turning point. Attraction without assumption is just desire. Assumption without conscious observation becomes denial. But when you unite clear perception, true feeling, and coherent vibrational posture, something happens. Reality begins to bend. Not because you forced it, but because you became compatible. That's the key. You don't create from nothing. You create from what you feel as real now. The quantum field only collapses into something when your vibration is already aligned with that possibility. And that vibration arises from the internal state you assume, even before seeing the result. But if everything responds to your internal state, then who in fact is projecting reality? Is the universe something outside of you? Or is the very structure of the world you see a direct reflection of your consciousness? In the next section, we will touch on one of the most transformative ideas in new science, biocentrism, and explore how the universe may actually be a hologram shaped by your attention, like a beam of light activating only what you are ready to see. Biocentrism in the holographic universe. You project reality. What if the reality you see around you isn't actually outside of you? What if what we call the world is just an image projected from your consciousness? This is no longer just a mystical hypothesis. It's also a scientific proposition. According to biocentrism, a theory developed by Robert Lanza, life and consciousness are not products of the universe. They are its structural foundation. This reverses traditional logic. It's not the brain that creates consciousness, but consciousness that sustains the brain and everything we call reality. Time, space, matter, all are properties that only arise when there is an observer. This view echoes a profound principle that many spiritual traditions have long affirmed. The external world is an extension of your internal perception. There is no objective and separate outside. The universe manifests according to the observer's position. Now imagine reality as a hologram. In a hologram, each small part contains the image of the whole, but it only reveals itself when activated by a beam of light. So it is with the quantum universe. All possibilities already exist, but they only take shape when your attention, your inner light, collides with the field. What you see, feel, and experience is only the slice of the hologram activated by your current vibration. If you vibrate fear, you access the parts of the field that resonate with fear. If you vibrate confidence, you activate another layer. And the most impressive part, this happens all the time, even when you're not aware of it. Life, then, is not happening to you. It is responding to you, to your observation, your intention, your energetic state. This understanding is not just liberating, it's a vibrational responsibility. Because if everything you perceive is a projection of your frequency, then transforming external reality requires first reorganizing the internal world. And there is no more precise technology for this than the body itself. Your body is your personal hologram. Within it are the channels, centers, and flows that conduct your energy and shape your perception. When these centers are misaligned, the projection is distorted. When they are flowing, reality responds with clarity. In the next section, we'll walk through this internal map, explore the chakras as centers of energetic intelligence, and understand how ancient traditions identified, long before modern science, the exact points where you can access, transform, and direct your own vital energy. Chakras and vital energy, the internal map of energy manipulation. Your body is not just flesh, bone, and electrical impulses. It is also a field, alive, pulsing, vibrational. Ancient cultures knew this long before science tried to explain it. To them, there was something subtle yet powerful that flowed within us. Prana, chi, ki, different names for the same vital energy that sustains life on all levels. This energy doesn't move randomly. It follows pathways. And along these pathways are centers, vortexes that receive, filter, store, and emit frequency. These are the chakras, not as something mystical or distant, but as part of a real, sensitive, influenceable energy system. Each chakra is connected to a dimension of your existence, not just in the physical body, but in the emotional, mental, and spiritual fields. When one of these centers is blocked, energy doesn't flow. You feel stagnation, repetition, a sense of disconnection from your own life. But when there is alignment, clarity, presence, and magnetism arise, external reality adjusts to the new internal rhythm. The first chakra, at the base of the spine, sustains survival and safety instincts. The second, in the lower abdomen, governs emotions and pleasure. The third, in the solar plexus, relates to action and willpower. The fourth, in the heart, balances love and openness. The fifth, in the throat, is the center of authentic expression. The sixth, between the eyebrows, activates intuitive vision. And the seventh, at the crown of the head, connects to the field of higher consciousness. But chakras are not fixed concepts. They are gateways. And these gateways only open with presence. It's not enough to study the centers. You must feel them. Inhabit the body with awareness. Observe what is alive, what pulses, what silently screams for reconnection. That's why practices like yoga, meditation, tai chi, and even ancestral dances are not just physical exercises. They are ways of moving energy back into natural flow, of releasing what is stagnant, of transforming the body into a vibrant, conscious temple. Manipulating energy, at its core, is not about control. It's about listening. You connect with the chakras not to dominate them, but to dialogue with them, to understand what each one reflects about your relationship with life. And the more sensitive you become to this internal field, the clearer the external reflection becomes. Reality begins to respond with more lightness, more synchronicity, more coherence. But there is a direct, simple, and immediate portal to access this subtle energy. Something that has accompanied you since the first moment of life and will stay with you until the last: your breath. In the next section, we'll enter that space between inhale and exhale and explore how conscious breathing, combined with focus, can awaken the real sensation of energy flowing right now in your body, your vibration, your presence. Breathing and focus. Practical technique to feel the energy now. Breathing is the first sound of life. It is the movement that passes through the body even before the mind becomes aware of itself. And yet, it is the most neglected aspect of our presence. Breathing seems obvious, but breathing with intention is alchemy. Every energy system responds to breath. When you breathe shallowly, hurriedly, or automatically, vital energy retracts. The body enters defense mode. The mind becomes scattered. But when you breathe deeply, with awareness, something changes. The field expands, presence solidifies, energy begins to circulate. There are both ancient and modern practices that prove this. Among them stands out the breathing method developed by Wim Hof. Inspired by ancient traditions and validated by recent studies, this method combines intense breathing cycles with conscious retention. The result is a kind of physiological reset, a state in which body and mind return to center. But more than technique, what matters here is the intention behind the breath. When you breathe with focus, you anchor your attention in the body, and where attention rests, energy moves. That is the secret. The simple act of inhaling and exhaling with awareness becomes a direct bridge to the energy centers. You begin to feel a subtle warmth, a tingling, a light expansion. It is prana responding. It is the body remembering it is alive. A brief practice done with presence can completely shift your vibrational state. Breathing slowly and deeply for a few minutes with your eyes closed, directing attention to the heart, for example, can open a flow that has been blocked for days. Not because you did it right, but because you surrendered to presence. Vital energy doesn't need to be pulled from outside. It is already within you, simply dormant, and breath is the call that awakens it. Many people seek to feel energy through complex practices, elaborate rituals, or altered states. But the truth is that access is always available. In the air you breathe, in the pause between one breath and the next, in the awareness that observes without judgment. Breathing with focus is like cleaning a mirror. You remove noise, distractions, excess, and what remains is you, whole, alive, ready to feel. But if it's so simple, why do so many people struggle to keep this energy awake in daily life? Because breath, even being a powerful key, is easily neutralized by habits that silently drain energy. Beware what drains your energy without you realizing it. You may breathe with presence, meditate with discipline, align chakras and focus intentions. But if you are surrounded by habits that silently drain your energy, the flow will never be sustained. It's like trying to light a candle in a room with constant wind. The flame may appear for a moment, but it does not last. Energy drainage is not always visible. It disguises itself as routine, distraction, normalcy. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous. It happens in the details, in the small daily leaks that accumulate until you feel exhausted, disconnected, and don't understand why. One of the biggest thieves of energy is scattered attention. When your mind is constantly jumping between notifications, random thoughts, worries, and external stimuli, your energy fragments. The vibrational field weakens. You may be physically still, but internally you are being pulled in 1,000 directions. And that consumes more than any physical effort. Energy is also lost in what you consume, not just what enters the body, but mainly what enters the mind. Heavy information, negative thought patterns, toxic environments, and empty conversations have a direct impact on your field. Even when you don't care, your frequency registers everything. The field does not distinguish between what you accept rationally and what you allow energetically. There's also subtle self-sabotage, dietary habits that numb you, lack of sleep that weakens vitality, over-effort trying to solve everything with the mind. Every time you deny the natural rhythm of the body and soul, there is a break in the flow, and little by little, a sense of emptiness sets in. But perhaps what drains your energy the most is silent resistance to the present moment. That internal tension that tries to control what cannot be controlled, that fights against what already is, that doesn't accept feeling what is pulsing now. This resistance creates vibrational friction, and where there is friction, there is loss of energy. Protecting your energy is not isolating from the world, but learning to more consciously choose what you allow into your field. It's knowing how to say no to what fragments, and above all, it's knowing how to return. Breathe, ground. Gather yourself again at the center, and when you manage to preserve this vital energy, it becomes moldable. In the next section, we'll unite everything we've covered so far in a concrete practice. You'll learn to use the flame of a candle as a point of focus and channel your intention through felt visualization. Not as a mental exercise, but as a vibrational ritual, where emotion, presence, and inner image align to collapse a new reality. Final practice: the candle technique plus visualization with emotion. There comes a time when thinking is not enough, when studying, reflecting, and understanding no longer move the energy. The field responds to what vibrates, not to what is intellectually grasped, and that's why it's time to experience, to bring everything into the body, into the now. The candle practice is an invitation to this return, a silent ancestral ritual where focus becomes a bridge and emotion becomes vibrational language. You begin by lighting a candle, not in a rush but with intention, as someone who is lighting something within themselves. The outer flame is a reflection of the inner fire, the same that creates, feels, manifests. Sit before it with eyes open and heart still. Let the flame occupy your attention for a few minutes, without effort, just presence. The dance of the light begins to dissolve internal noise, and little by little, the world quiets. When you feel ready, close your eyes. The image of the flame will remain in your visual memory. But now the true practice begins in the inner field. In this silent space, you will visualize what you wish to manifest, but not as a distant film. You will step into the scene. Feel as if you are already living it now, not with anxiety, but with surrender. The secret is not in the perfect image, but in true emotion. The field does not respond to pretty words. It responds to felt frequency. If your body vibrates as someone who already lives it, the field collapses. Reality organizes itself around this vibrational coherence. You are not just imagining. You are anchoring a real possibility in the present. Remain in this state for a few moments. Breathe into it. Let your body memorize this sensation, because the more familiar it becomes, the more natural it will be to vibrate in that frequency daily. When you open your eyes and look again at the candle, something in you will have shifted, perhaps subtly, perhaps deeply, but there will be an internal shift, a new point of observation. This practice doesn't need to be long. It needs to be felt. Even just a few minutes a day, if done truthfully, begin to shift the field around you. You don't need to force transformation. You just need to sustain the vibration, because energy responds to your presence. And presence is what happens when you stop running, trying, controlling, and simply are. In the end, it's not about manifesting something outside. It's about becoming it within. You are the flame, you are the intention, you are the field, and it all begins the moment you decide to feel. We've come to the end of our journey, and perhaps now you realize that manipulating energy is not an act of force, but of presence. That what once seemed distant, a gift for the few, has always been accessible within you. Energy responds to how you feel, to how you observe, and most importantly, to how you position yourself before life. When the observer changes, everything changes. You are not at the mercy of reality. You are an active part in its creation, and every conscious choice is a vibrational seed planted in the field. Breathe, feel, trust in your presence. If this experience touched something in you, like this video and write in the comments, "I am the field, I am the choice." That way I'll know you walked all the way to the end, whole, and are ready to live from a new center.